Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be putting a roll cage into my S40 to get it ready for Thunder Saloons. Right, so a little bit of a confession. This isn't the first time that I've filmed this intro. You'll notice that the car has no cage at all. And I had previously said that I was only going to be replacing the front legs. That was the plan. And then I realised the back stays weren't compliant, so I had to replace the backstays, and then it turned out the design wasn't particularly compliant either, so I ended up cutting the whole rear section of the cage out, and then I was going to keep the main hoop, which is just over there, hidden behind bikes and engine and all stuff like that. And whilst I was cleaning it up, I thought, sod this, I'm just going to buy a new main hoop, start from scratch. The whole thing is getting redone. It's going to be slightly different design this time, and hopefully a lot better. It is pretty much all going to be 45mm tubes this time. Previously it was 38 apart from the main hoop, which is why I had to replace the front legs. I thought the back legs were also 45, but then I realized they weren't, so I had to replace them and so on and so forth. Anyway, that's all gone, starting from scratch. So yeah, I started filming stuff on this a couple of weeks ago, maybe even 3, before I realised I was just going to start from scratch. So some of the footage in this video is from back then, so I may say stuff which doesn't particularly make sense because I'm referring to the rear section of the cage. It all depends how this edit turns out, but there you go, that's my little confession. This wasn't the original plan. You can see the car is completely gutted now. So the previous feet are completely gone. There is no parcel shelf there now. It's all been removed. There were bits down here from the back stay of the rear bench, so they've all gone. And oh yeah, the dash bar too, that's gone. I cut that out. I'm going to be remaking a new one of those, so I have to make a steering column support as well. So yeah, it's looking really bare in here now. There is almost nothing left inside, and yeah, I best get cracking. So this main hoop is an exact copy of that one that came out. I did have to measure the previous hoop so I could draw this up in Fusion 360, send it off to Tube Bender. I've got all of these from there. I've got all of the straight tubes from them as well. I thought I'd give them a bit of a shout out because they have given me a really good service. They've been sending out things next day for me and answering a few of my questions. So a little quick tip on how to measure these angles and get all the lengths. I've got this piece of aluminium here, and if you rub it against the frame like that, you'll see it leaves a shiny line. Put this along that line, mark it straight, do the same on this side, go like that, mark that line too, and then get a angle finder like this, and then basically there's your angle, and you'll be able to find the center point of each one of these bends, and then basically you can give those dimensions directly to Tube Bender, or you can do what I did and draw it up in CAD and then send them the file. The front legs, however, were done differently because I wanted them to be a lot tighter to the shell, and I wanted it to come a lot further forwards as well. So I'll show you quickly how I measured those up. So what we have in here is some PVC pipe. I cut 3 lengths, as you can see here, taped it up where I want it to go, and then I got an angle finder to measure each one of these. Now I mentioned before that this original leg was made incorrectly, and if I just got those angles and sent them off to get them bent, this would also come back incorrectly, because if we move to the front of the car, you can see the vertical section of the leg here then kinks up because the car is narrower at the top, and then it straightens off on the roofline here. So what I had to do was mark some center lines on this where the angle was going to go, and then center lines up here as well, and then measured the rotation by getting the circumference of the tube and working out what the difference was from this line here to this line here to get that going. So once I had these dimensions, I threw it all into Fusion 360, drew it up, mirrored one side to the other, and took a load of dimensions on the car. So the distance between the feet, the first bend, the second bend, and where it joined onto the main hoop. And I also took a few dimensions to make up a new windscreen bar, drew it all in there, made sure it all worked, and sent it off to tubebender.co.uk, who supplied and bent all the tubes for, I think it was around £200 delivered. And this is what has turned up, and I have propped them up in the car and they look to be absolutely perfect. One other thing I have done in preparation for putting this roll cage in is I have made a fixture to go onto the lathe, so I can just clamp this into here, and on here I can set the rotation in degrees, then basically run it into this hole saw here, so it cuts it off. Does a very nice job actually. There we go, absolutely perfect notch on there. I've done a 90 degree and here's a 45 degree, and as you can see, absolutely spot on. So that will make life a lot easier, and because I do a lot of this work at night, that is certainly a lot quieter than running the angle grinder for notching all of these. It is something that I've done a lot of. I made all of this originally, and all of these have been notched by hand with an angle grinder. It does take a little while and it makes a lot of noise and a lot of mess, so hopefully this will make things a little bit easier and speed things up a little bit. So this is where the previous feet sat. You can see it was a square box, got welded in here a long time ago, I may add. Welds aren't particularly good, so I've made new ones, slightly different design. They sit in the corner like that, nice and tidy, and goes over the top of that previous mess that you saw in there. Obviously you can still see where the box was there, but that's okay. I've done one for the other side too, and that is where the main hoop will be supported off of. So the first thing I've got to do is get the main hoop in position, because everything comes off of that. So this is how we're looking. You can see up here I've clamped the main hoop to that bit of extrusion, and to align this down here I've got this bit of extruded aluminium on that bench there, and then here I've used a M12 bolt to space it off the body there, and I've done exactly the same on the other side, and we are within half a degree on both sides. And then down here I can then scribe a line along there, do the same again, trim these legs down, and then I can slide the boxes in there, tack it all in, and then that is the main hoop in position. Right, now that we've got the main hoop in, it is time to get some bars into the rear section of the cage, and the first one that I'm going to be doing is this one down here, which ties the main hoop legs together and will get welded to the rear bench. So you can see what I've done here. I've got a extruded piece of aluminium on the bench, and I've got an angle rested up against this leg, and then I've got the angle finder in there, which gives me, I think that says 88.4 degrees. So all I've got to do is measure from here to that side there to get the minimum length, so I know that I don't want to be cutting any more than that off. And yeah, then I've got to make the notches. And that there is how that's turned out, which is pretty much perfect. So when I was talking about measuring the minimum length in there, is basically in here. So now I can use this as a reference point. I'll get the dimensions from the car, mark from there to this end, and then when I start cutting with the hole saw, I can line it up with my mark, and then that should be all good. Right, so here is the test. Genuinely have not tried this yet. I've not even cleaned up the ends. It's just straight off the lathe. Yeah, let's see if this fits. I think this is the top. Fairly promising. There we go. Oh, absolutely bang on. Wow. Really happy with that. That's gone in really tight. It's right up against here. Good for welding. Absolutely perfect length. It's gone in there just absolutely spot on. So really happy with that. Just checking this side as well, and yeah, absolutely spot on, magnificent. Yeah, this is going to make life a lot easier to build this cage. I'll just level this up. I probably don't even need to tack this, it's in so tight, and then it's on to the next ones. Right, so we've got 2 bars in, and that joint there wasn't actually as bad as I thought. The way that I managed to do this one was take the angle straight off of here for this end, and then worked out the angle that this pipe intersected here, measured that and cut this side with this angle, cut this side with this angle, and kind of did a midpoint through the middle, and it pretty much fits up perfectly. Tiny little bit of a gap here, and I'm talking maybe 2 mil, but yeah, I'll shape that a bit more with the grinder and that will fit perfectly. I've got to do the diagonal coming in this way to make the cross through the middle, and doing this side will be a lot easier because I'll basically take a template off here and it should be identical to that one there. Obviously that one there gets cut in half because it's got to get cut into that tube there, but as that's just going into a straight section, that'll be nice and easy. And then once I've done that, I'll start looking at the back stays. I've got some plates to weld onto the rear tubs, so there you go, there's a plate there ready to get welded into position. I'll have one on this side too, and then the idea is I'll have a back stay coming down from here down to there. I'll have a strut bar coming from the rear stay across to this rear stay, and I'll also have from near the cage foot up across to the rear stay as well. So I'm gonna start making these rear stays now, and I had this little offcut piece where I tested the notcher. So I've got 45 degree this side and 90 degree on this end, and it slots really nicely onto this 38mm tube, and this actually used to be the rear stay that was in my previous cage. So what I've done is I've put a tapered cut on the end of there, and I've slotted that onto there, and in fact it is very close to where it wants to be. So using that as a template, as a bit of a guide, I've measured the inside angle here, which is 53 degrees, and this one down here is 39 degrees. Measured the length, and that is now my template to make the real thing. Not bad. Right, rear diagonals are in, and so is the rear strut bar, just tacked in position at the moment. So there are a few more tubes to go in the back here. I'm planning on doing an inverted V to the center point there, down to the corners where I get to the strut towers, and also put in bar from here to the strut tower as well. But the height of this will be determined by the door bars, and I'm still not entirely sure about doing the inverted V or doing a cross or just doing a single bar across, because that will be determined by the roof bars and the windscreen bar. I've got a couple of ideas on how I'm going to do this, but I want to get the front section of the cage in first, windscreen bar in, and then determine what I'm going to do up here, because I want to maximize headroom just so I've got plenty of clearance from my head to all these tubes for obvious reasons. So next thing to do is decide what is happening down here with these feet. So I've got to make some boxes to go there. Right, so after what feels like forever later, making templates out of cardboard and all things like that, I have this, and it fits just there. And yeah, that's a lot better than the previous cage foot that was in there. Tucked up in the corner, should be good. Right guys, so we are back in the garage, and I've taken a little time off. It's been more than a week since the last clip that you've just seen. I've actually been over in America, back at the Freedom Factory. I went with my wife Emily this time. She had an absolutely brilliant time. We both did. I didn't film anything this time. I just helped out with the other guys' cars from Skids for Kids. The guys have been working really hard on their cars all winter, and this was the first event of the year. They weren't quite buttoned up, so I lent a hand to most of them actually, and I now seem to know my way around an LS engine quite well. So anyway, back onto this. So what I've been doing is I've been transferring marks across from this leg here, which has been cut and test fitted, and hopefully that will slot straight in there. So here we go, moment of truth. I've not tried this at all, so I hope this fits. because otherwise I'll be pretty upset. Something's not quite right. I'm going to stick the other one in to compare it. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not right. To be fair, I seem to recall clamping it in quite a few places, the other one, so I'll try that. I'll get the other one in so I can compare it, but it's fairly close. It's not terrible. I'm sure I'll be able to figure this out. Right, we are getting somewhere. Front legs are in position. I've got a load of ratchet straps and clamps and all stuff like that to get them into the position that I want them. Next thing, I guess, is to do a dash bar so I can get rid of these clamps up here because they're pulling the front legs out all the way to the shell. So if I jam a bar in there, I can get rid of those clamps. Then after that, I've got the windscreen bar which goes up there, and then door bars, and then I've got to do some roof bracing as well. So we're not too far off. Fiddling around with these front legs has taken absolutely ages to get them in the position I want. This bar should be fairly quick. Door bars hopefully quick. I expect it will be fairly fiddly to do the bar at the top here. Oh, once I've done that, I've got a few more bars to stick in the back here as well. So we're actually getting somewhere. It's taken a little while to get this far, but hopefully it'll all be done soon, and then it's a matter of taking it out again. Right guys, I am going to have to make an apology to you guys because I've been working on this car so hard and this camera has not been on for the last, I don't know, week, possibly even more. But I'm finally in a position now where all the tubes have been measured, they've been notched, they've been cut, and they are fitted into position, albeit with either zip ties or clamps or magnets or whatever, but it's all pieced together and it's looking fantastic. I have to be honest, I am really happy with how this has turned out. It's looking mega. I suppose there's nothing left but to show you what we've made. Anyway, that is it for this video. It's probably been a long one. It's probably not been particularly interesting, probably. I don't know. I'll see what happens when I edit it. Next job on the agenda is to actually take all of this out again. It is just tacked in a couple of positions. That's why I didn't want to put too many tacks on there, because I'm going to have to cut them all off and basically clean up the ends. So a lot of these have come straight off the lathe, off the notcher. I'm going to have to grind all of them down so I can get the full width of the tube. I'm going to have to degrease all the tubes inside and out, prepare everything, and then basically start putting it back in. I will probably throw a very light dusting of etch primer over all the tubes individually before it goes back in the car, because I'm not going to get this done in a single night. It's going to be here for a number of days, weeks perhaps. before I can get some proper paint on it, and I don't want it to all go rusty before I can get it painted in. I expect it will go red. So yeah, it's going to be fairly disheartening taking all of this out, but it needs to be done, and hopefully I can get it all cleaned up, all back in the car, all welded in good time, and we can get on with a bit more progress, and hopefully for you guys more frequent videos, because I have been lacking. I do have, I don't know, 3-4 videos that I need to edit, but I've been out here so many nights in a row, so many weeks, usually from 10 o'clock at night till about 1 o'clock. What's time now? It's just gone midnight, so this is an early night for me finishing up now. I'm sure my neighbours will be glad when this car is done, because yeah, I imagine that I've been making quite a lot of noise right into the early hours of the morning, so apologies to them, but well, got to build a car, haven't I? Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. If you've got any questions, drop them down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.